Welcome to the Fifth Trooper Podcast.
Five, 4,
3,
2.
1.
Oh god.
Welcome
Yeah.
to the Fifth Trooper. My name's Evan, and with me I have a special guest, Jay Shalansky.
Hi.
Hey, so this is your first time on. I want to set some ground rules here.
Yeah.
I need you to
real
have
low key. We're coming in, huh?
a little bit, but
Slow and low?
sometimes you
Is this
just gotta,
NPR?
let me tell you about a fine shoe I saw on the side of the road. Welcome to the cast.
Had pumpernickel soup?
Oh, it's fantastic. Thanks for tuning in again. Okay, just a hard stare. All right. So, Jay, you came out with The Lads last Friday.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to have to fish this out.
Yeah, it's not easy being in charge, is it? Go ahead, come on, carry this podcast.
Wow. All right. Okay. So, Jay came out with The Lads, and we played Scythe. I know we're about 4 years late to the party talking about it, but
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah, it was good.
Okay. All right. So,
Well, that's the end of the podcast, everybody.
jeez,
Thanks
man.
for
all right.
joining us.
All right. So, for those that don't know,
Yeah.
Scythe is a Stonemaier game. It came out like Kickstarted about, like I said, like 2016, I think. Hit retail, got really big, really popular. It didn't hit that tragedy of most Kickstarter board games where they come out, they never see retail, and they just kind of disappear into obscurity. It was one of the big ones that actually made it onto store shelves, and suppliers can get it. You can go into just about any game store and find a base, like just the base game, and the slew of expansions for it. But it's called the 1940 plus, so it's or 1920 plus. It's World War I think, is the aesthetic. So it's what if there were steampunk giant mechs along with people in a World War I-ish setting.
Yeah, so it's kind of along the lines of Conflict 47, but in board game form. So it was like, to me, it kind of felt like, it was the first time I'd ever played it, touched it, read about, like, I've never even, I've been occupied with a ton of other games, so, like, I've never even really thought about it before. So when it was on the table, it was like an interesting mix between, like, small world Risk and like Waterdeep.
Okay, yeah. So it's an area control game at its core.
Yeah.
Like area control at its
Like
core.
small world.
Yeah, with some worker placement like
Yep.
Waterdeep, and also some like non-randomized combat.
Like like
yeah,
Risk.
Yeah. So Risk has those dice.
Oh, yeah,
but
right, that's randomized.
But it's
You're
still
right,
like
you're
you're still fighting over territory. The random
Territories,
part
yeah.
is there's a combat deck that you can pull from, so that simulates random like cards you
Right.
get. But we got a 7-player game going. We played with just the board extender. So what's really interesting about Scythe is when you pull out the board, and you can play with just a normal board, or you can flip it and then buy a side attachment to make the board like enhance. Like you zoom in, so you get bigger spaces and tiles, and everything's bigger. So.
Yeah.
Because you start getting like some of the expansions of airships and there's a lot of stuff can be jammed on these little tiles. So we did that, and we did the extra encounter deck, which is if you move your character into certain spots, they get a one-shot like choose your own adventure of like usually a good thing, a medium thing, a bad thing, and that affects like different resources you get.
Yeah, but it's not. It's like, what was that other game that we played? So it's kind of like Forgotten Waters in the way where the bad thing was good for you, but also bad for you.
Oh yeah, so there's a popularity track, and generally
Yeah.
the bad thing lowers your popularity track because it's like one of them's like you find a broken down mech, offer to fix it, get something kind of like yay, okay, offer like leave without saying anything, get something, or steal the giant robot from the owner, and then you get negative popularity, but you get a mech kind of thing.
Yeah, like I was playing Germans. They don't tell you they're the Germans, but
They look very, yeah.
it's very clear that they're the Germans. There's like a wolf and
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Like World War One,
Yeah,
you got the Iron Point helmets.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I think the one adventure one I had, it was like burn down a local village to get like double, like you got like double the resources it was a lot. Like, and I was looking at it, and at the time I didn't really know, and it turned out I did fine at the game, but like I didn't know what the popularity thing was. So
Yeah.
I was like, well, we're the Germans. We don't want to be popular. We want to take over. So. And that's kind of like their deal in the game, right? Like they want to build up mechs and build this war machine to kind of start going.
Yeah. So each faction plays a little bit differently, right?
Yeah.
Like they have a different character ability. And so what's interesting is you've got each like race, if you want to call it like that. Each faction has a board that gives you each of their mechs does something a little bit different. They have a different like core power, like the German one is like you can win combat as many times as you want to get victory points.
Yep.
And then there's a different industrial board, which is like there's like patriotic, industrial, agricultural. There's different sideboards, so you can mix and match, and you hand them out randomly. So you might not ever play the same two in a long time. Like you might get a different way. So it's interesting to play because you're always kind of doing something different. It's not the same for each one. And we it's funny because like the encounter cards, the deck is like 70 cards at this point because I got the little expansion with the base game, and it's something that only like it happens about 11 times a game. Each player usually gets like 2, but they put so much effort into it. Like there's so many cards and art for all of them that it's kind of funny because you might get 2, maybe you get none. Like it's just how the game rolls. So
Yeah, and like the way, besides it being like a map and an area control type thing, the way it's similar to Smallville, I found was a couple ways. So the races from Smallville, but the factions in Scythe, like if can travel differently based on like the location or stuff like that. So that's very similar to Small World. Like giants could do specific things from like mountainsides, right? And so so that was similar. And then also they have tunnels. So the Germans, if you controlled a mountain, you could transport to any tunnel.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's
and
really powerful.
So like that was an interesting thing, and it just reminded me a lot of how Small World is in that mechanic specifically, where it's this area control, and then I get some special stuff for being on certain properties, right? And that seemed cool. The miniatures were okay, like they weren't anything to write home about. Like they're fine.
The mechs look cool, and then everything else is like wood chits, and the mechs look cool. The heroes are really neat, but everything else is like wood chits and wood like
and it's kind of like Blood Rage too, where like, the miniatures are cool and they're unique and they set you apart, but then they had like a color coordination system already, so I don't know that I would ever paint them. Like if I owned it, like
I think I would just paint the hero if I had to pick one, because they're like usually it's like a character and like an animal companion. I think that would be cool, but like the mechs, they're fine. Like they're black.
Like
they're yellow. They're
mine. I was
red.
The black team, the Germans, and my mechs were black. And I'm like, you know what? I'd much rather them be black because then I can recognize them on the table.
I think it's just easier. But and we added the 2 other races that came in or 2 other factions that came in like a side expansion. So we had a 7-player game going. It lasted about 3 hours, I want to say. 2.5, 3.
Yeah, but there was a lot of messing around and like getting food. And, so it wasn't like a full 3 hours. I think maybe like it was closer to 2.
Yeah, it's like
there was a lot of talking and stopping. And then we had a guy show up late, and we
just threw him in. So the game's kind of interesting. So I mean, normally you'd have to stop or whatever, but we were like 2 turns in, so we just like threw him in the board. We moved him up like a theoretical 2 turns he would take. And like, all right, man, you're good. Like, let's just get you in there.
Yeah, because it's very like I think one of their rules on their quick start guide is see what everybody else is doing and do something different. But that's not really the case. Like for the first like 3 to 4 moves, it felt like no, you have to do these to start building into what your race or your faction wants to do. And so it's very clear. Like even the first 2 turns, because you can only do one action. You can't do the same action the next turn. You have to do a different action. So pretty much it's like, okay, I'm gonna farm and then I'm gonna move, right?
Yep,
And then I'm
yep.
gonna farm and then I'm gonna move.
Yeah, you do like you rotate between two, and then usually bolster is so there's top action, bottom action, and top actions usually get a thing, and then bottom action on each of these four places you can put your pawn is pay something to get something.
So it's like, yeah, all those secondary actions are to like build up your
Yeah, like
faction.
you can enlist, which gives you abilities each time the player left or right of you does an action, you get a free thing. You can put a mech out. You can build a building. You can upgrade it so your abilities at the top are more effective and your ones at the bottom cost less. It's actually like the learning curve when you're first explaining to somebody, they're like, "Whoa, what's going on?" And then like 2 turns later, it's okay, yeah, red pay a thing, green get a thing, got it.
Yeah, and I would say people, it's not a casual game, so it's not for people
No.
who don't play often, right?
Yeah.
Board games often, or even miniature games often. But if you have friends who are experienced at games, like, okay, so Evan brought me in. They kind of gave me like a quick preview, and then I was like, all right, just play it because I just need to see it work. And I mean, I think I ended up coming in fourth or something,
Yeah,
third
like third or
or fourth.
fourth,
Like it took me. Next time I'll be better, of course, right? But that first game, it took me probably 3 or 4 turns, and I was like, "Nah, I got it." And then I made some mistakes, of course, the first couple turns.
It's
That set me back, which I feel like afterwards I was looking at. I'm like, okay, if I had just done this, I probably could have won on points. But it was just like because I was new, I was just set back a little bit, which is fine. That's not a complaint. That's just a. But it was so intuitive enough that once I picked it up, like I said, I was like third with points, or roughly, right?
We've played 4 games now, and then each time we've played someone different as one because they tried something different with the learning the game. So I think that's actually really cool.
Well, and I like what the group does too is you randomize the faction, which makes you change how you play anyways, right? So it kind of you understand the game, but it sets you back at 0 because the faction wants something different.
Yeah, there's like one that mechs can go underwater. Like there's lakes that they can get into and warp around. Like there's one, the red faction, they can do the same action over and over again. Like they don't need to move their pawn. There's one can lay traps, one can put flags. Like there's like they all play a little bit different.
Yeah,
and just, like very subtly so.
Because Chris won, right? So our buddy Chris, who won, he played the Germans last time and just got demolished.
Yeah.
But then this time he came in it with a new attitude and a new faction, and it just seemed like the faction spoke to him. So he, then he crushed us all. Like I think he had me by 30 points, and so
he played the yellow. I don't remember their names, but it's the one where you can give up a combat
to be the
card.
Mongolians, I think
so.
Yeah.
You can give up a yellow card. As a resource. So if you have to pay 3 metal to buy a mech, you can pay 2 metal in a combat card. So he just went on lists, and then he got like everyone else was working for him kind of after that. Then he started just like popularity, and I got to the point where it'd been like 3 hours, and I'm like, I'm not winning this. Time to Kingmaker, kind of. I actually didn't know who was gonna win because I was kind of looking, and I'm like, well, I just need to end it, and then I might win because I've got a lot of stuff.
Right.
And then I think I was like a point under you. And then he just like ran away with it. I'm like, I know he's got a lot, but I don't think he's got a lot of like stuff. I think I can do this.
Right, yeah.
And I didn't realize he had like, and the scoring at the end is also at first you're like, what is going on? And then you're like, oh wait, popularity just puts me into a bracket, and that's what each of those are worth, right? Like that.
Yeah. The more popular you are, the more points you get for other things, which is an interesting way to do it, but is not like I had no popularity basically.
You just had a lot of stuff,
and I just had a lot of other things that I was the first one to make mechs. I was so I had my stars up. It was really interesting, and there's a lot going on for sure. But like if you've played miniature games, if you played any other board game before, it picks up quick, and you kind of see what's going on. The hardest part really is with any game is triggers, right?
Yep.
Like especially if you've enlisted a bunch of times,
Making like,
make
what'd you
sure
do?
you're paying attention.
Yeah.
Right?
What'd you do in your turn?
And
What'd you do in your
especially,
turn?
well, especially if it's like a friend's night and you're like beer and pizza, you're
Yeah, we're
like
pretty-
shooting the shit and you're like
we're pretty
drinking
casual
and
about it,
yeah,
yeah.
and you're like playing casually and like so Evan would be telling me a story or I'm talking to Evan or one of the guys I haven't seen in a while about something and then I'm like, whoa. What did you just do on your turn? Because it like
Yeah, I just look at their pawn and I read what they do. I'm like, all right, yeah. I
because
need
once you're in the groove of a turn, like everybody kind of knows what they're doing. Everyone's just moving, like they got their turn down. Like especially if you're playing 7 players, right? You got 6 other people before it gets back to you, so you've already thought about your turn. Because generally, I mean, minus Spencer coming in and attacking me and messing with me a little bit. There's not a ton of interaction in the first.
Yeah, it's as much or as little as you want.
Yeah, and like in the first half of the game, Spencer came on and attacked early into the German territory. He was the Polish, and he came and attacked early. And it was, I think it was a mistake, but he had something he wanted to do, and he made the decision to come in early. But really, like they didn't even explain attacking to me because like that's not going to happen for a while. And then like turn 4, Spencer's like attack.
Yeah, I'm like, well, that's because when you're teaching Scythe, you want to get into the game because it's like 10 to 15 minutes to set up sometimes because I don't have one of the, so I'm like 100, like 200, like almost 250 in on this game at this point, and because the base game's like 90, and I bought it from my local shop because I want to give them some money, right? I could have got like even online though your savings is like $10. It's not like crazy. So and then I got all the expansions, and then now I need to buy an organizer to make the setup, but that's like $100. It's all woodcut, like, and we got the legendary box. We can jam everything in there. So like setup is actually a little bit like intense. So by the time you get everything out and everything ready, and people are going, and then you have to teach the game, you're like, all right, I'm going to teach you what's important right now, and then we'll get to things so you don't get overwhelmed. And then combats.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure Evan.
I didn't think it was going to happen that fast.
Right, Evan and I have talked about it before. Evan's our guy that reads the instructions. He's done it for so long that he can read them, understand them, and move on quickly, right? But like I think for you, it's by that time you had explained it 7 times, right?
Yes.
So I was like to yourself once, and then to everybody else. So I was the 7th person to get the lecture on the game, and you're just like, I can't.
Yeah, just follow. Well, you started like putting your pieces up correctly, and I'm like, all right, he's got it.
Yeah.
Because normally people get their stuff and they're just like, whoa. And then I'm like, well, you put the things in the grooves, and it's like, oh, groove, right?
Yeah. And I mean, you play enough of these games, like you're just like, oh yeah, I got it. And I think I might have had like 2 or 3 questions as we were playing, and and there was more of strategy type stuff. Like, well, what would you guys do here?
Yep.
But overall, I picked it up quick. The one thing I still haven't really comprehended is you can do both actions, right? If you have the ability.
Yeah, you can do one, both, or neither. You can just pick produce and choose to do
okay,
nothing.
so I was doing both, but then afterwards I was like, was that right?
Yeah, if you've got the stuff.
And it was, right? But it was like, there's just little questions you have, right? And then, but overall, yeah, I think it was a quick game for considering.
Quick for what it is. So, right, like it's we could have added more. Like I've got the airships, which you get these giant, awesome looking airboats, and they can move either like beginning of the game, you lay out these 2 cards, and they can either move like people or resources around. So you can like fly in, grab some stuff, and like leave.
Yeah.
And then there's like a whole campaign you can actually play with like legacy stuff. So like you start out and everybody's like action like means something, and then depending on how the game played, there's like a whole box just for the campaign. Like this game, if I found groups that just play Scythe, they just get together, they play Scythe, and then that's it. There's no other. And so we have a lot of guys on Friday. And so I was looking for a game. I'm like, I wanted to get the Fallout FFG game, the one where everyone's kind of on the wasteland, but only plays 4, and it plays even the expansion. It plays 4, and I'm like, we got like 5 guys, 5, 6 guys,
right.
And I'm like, well, one of my talisman is, talisman with that many players is just it can like your turns just can take forever to get to you, and then like just ton of downtime. And I'm like, I don't want to do talisman. I don't hate the game, just I hate it when there's that many people. Then I'm like looking around. I'm like, well, we've already done Forgotten Waters like once or twice, and I'm like, that can't be the. I could play Forgotten Waters forever, but I'm like, that we gotta do something. Then I I walked in the store and I saw the box and it said 1 to 5 in the box, and the expansion gives you 6 and 7, and I'm like, well, cash money. All right, like let's do it. And then I played it, and then I really love this game because it's Twilight. My way to explain it, if you've played Twilight Imperium, is take Twilight Imperium and then shorten it to about 3 hours, take away the politics for the most part. Like, and it's just a expand, control, conquer game, and then you can get it done in about 2.5. And there's even like they put a ton of like expansion stuff into it. There's there's even different end conditions you can shoot for, like in the box. That's my easiest way to explain it.
Yeah, and I mean it just really has it has a number of mechanics that are all good mechanics from other games. You know, like even deck building, right? Because you're building that deck for your fighting deck, right? So so you got that aspect, right? And then that's a whole concept onto itself, the deck building and fighting and spending, it's just there's just a ton of great mechanics in it that really make it a great game, like because and like I said, and that's why I was saying, like, if you've played a bunch of games, you can play this game because it's all mechanics you've played before, just all in one game.
I would say because it is a heavy buy-in, like $100, right? Like that's a heavy buy-in. So here's how I would recommend it: if you like combat games such as I know, let's step above Risk. Let's take like a Small World. You're kind of taking that on each other, or you want to play like Nexus Ops or Cyclades or one of those other games that's like you're kind of fighting back and forth for territory. You're like, man, I want to take this one step further, but I don't want to, because like Twilight Imperium's 150, right? You're like, I don't have 8 hours or 6 hours, and I get it. People can play it in 4, but I've never played in a group for Twilight Imperium that's gotten done in 4. It's always been at least 6 to 9.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I found too, and I think we all find this, right? The more you expand your friend group outside of just gamers to more guys or girls that you're trying to build into gaming, the less time that they're willing to commit towards a game. So like that Friday night was perfect because we're all, everyone that was there has varying experiences at gaming, but they're all willing to put 3 hours on a Friday night aside, right?
And that's actually where it fits very...
Yeah.
Like it slots in where it's just long enough to feel like you're committing to it and like you're getting through it and your actions matter, but not to the point where people start like checking out generally, because even to the end people are still like they're invested. So it's, if you want to step up from like if you stepped up from Risk to some of these other combat games and you're like, because this isn't super heavy combat, but there's still like a lot of subtleties to the combat, manipulation and like conquering. So you're like, well, what's the next step? Scythe is a great next step, and it also has a ton of support, and like their website has alternate rules. You can even buy metal money, which I think is awesome. You can buy acrylic resource tokens. They even have a modular map where you set it out and you shuffle the tiles, and so your map can be different every time. That's really cool.
It's really interesting. Again, man, that's funny because that Small World has that too.
Yeah.
So I have I was obsessed with Small World for a while, and so I have Small World, Underworld. I have the expansion map that's the random map pack. And then I have all the old, I haven't bought into it in a while, but all the old expansions. So like I had everything for Small World and I was just like, I love this game.
Yeah, we can get a game of, so we usually hang out for about 5 hours on Friday night. So we usually get out of work, we're all there around 5, and then we leave around 10. And so we can get a game of Scythe in, a full game where it gets to a conclusion and we don't have to cut it early, and then like we've been doing Dark Age of Shadows over Camelot. We've been doing a couple, like 1 or 2 games of that. And a really quick note on that, I didn't realize that game was out of print. So one of the guys was like, wow, this is a lot of fun. It's one of the first co-op games that got popular. You're all playing Knights of Camelot and you're fighting all, like, it's terrible. Like you're always losing all the time, but you're working together. It might be Hidden Traitor. But it's got the only game I've ever seen that has a drop in, drop out. So like if you've got to go, you just pick up your knight and the game just adjusts.
Yeah.
And then if you come in late, you can just add a knight and the game adjusts.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
It's the only game I've ever seen do that. But we can get Scythe and like 2 games of that in, and like be like cool. Like it's interesting.
Yeah, so if you're into gaming and you're trying to get friends who maybe don't play as often as you or haven't played games into it, you start with the easy stuff. So you could start with Risk isn't easy. Everyone's played Risk. But then I would move to probably Small World. That's because if your end goal, if you look into Scythe and your end goal is to play Scythe on Friday nights.
Oh yeah, what can you do to train people? Yeah,
I'm giving you a path into it. So it's Risk to Small World.
Okay.
Then I would say after that I would go to Waterdeep.
Waterdeep is a really easy worker placement.
Yeah,
and it's also D&D themed, so that's kind of cool.
Right. What's the whole name? It's
Lords of Waterdeep.
Lords of Waterdeep. Yep. Yeah.
I recommend the expansion too. If
Yeah.
you do it.
Yeah. It's really great game. So Risk, Small World, or Lords of Waterdeep, that'll get you pretty darn close. Then you could even sprinkle in a King of Tokyo, like just to like get them into like fighting, right? Like
yeah, I would say you could do like a good resource management like Splendor.
Oh, that's a good one too.
So the way you have to buy the coins for the jewels, then you can turn those jewels into a thing, right?
Yeah.
A card. So that's like when in Scythe you gather resources. I know someone's gonna listen to this and say we're crazy, but that's fine. But like Scythe, you need to like get, hey, I need to build the house. I want a building. I need to build my monument or my windmill. I need 4 wood. So you put your workers on wood, and then you get 4 wood and you turn them into that.
So
like,
you could
just
even
something
sprinkle
like
a little Settlers of Catan in there.
Yeah, actually, that's good.
That would
that's
put
good.
you. That would
That's
put
better.
you in the mood into Scythe, right?
Yeah, you need to put them all together, and then when
Yeah.
you break out Scythe, you're just like, wait, because they're gonna see the rules and like
Just gloss over.
yeah, they actually make great. The game actually comes with really good. Hey, this is how you should probably play your first couple turns, and really good quick reference cards of like I even print out right on their site. You can print out a double-sided like here's what each of the actions do. Here's what you're gonna do on a turn. Here's how combat works, and it takes it from that giant like the manual's not that big, but there's quite a bit of like scenarios in it. To just one page, like front to back, that you can give. So I printed out enough to hand out to everybody, and they can read it. And then while they're waiting for their turn to come around, they can be like, "What does produce do?" Right? Like it's actually not. The resources are out there to make it engageable. Engageable is not a word, but like engaging without you just hit this like wall of rules.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I liked it. Enjoyable. Nice.
Enjoyable.
Enjoyable. Okay, so here's another game we can talk about, and this is one of those. For instance, you want a bunch of people to play Dead of Winter. Okay, but they're not there yet.
Okay.
What are the games? Let's talk about some games that get you there. So the one I want to bring up is Donner Dinner Party.
Oh, okay. I would say like Pandemic.
Okay, yeah, that's one. But this one I played recently. So Donner Dinner Party is basically it's a casual party game. Okay, and it's got rules for 4 up to 7 or 8, I believe. Okay, and what happens is you're the Donner Party, the cannibals, right? And so you're around the campfire. And depending on how many players there are will depend on how many cannibals are in the group. So you can either be a pioneer or a cannibal. It's random, okay? Cannibals, your whole goal is to eat people and to get people out, right? And if there's only cannibals left, then you guys win. If there's only pioneers left, then the pioneers win, okay? So the pioneers' goal is to survive and then to hunt out all the cannibals, okay? So basically what happens is you get like a hand of potential food that you have to put in every night in order to survive, okay? And you could have rats, you could have medicine, you can have another food, I forgot the name, and then you could have poison. So poison doesn't poison the people, it poisons the whole lot of food so that you have to eat somebody. So the rats and the other one give you so many points towards food, and then you have to have so many points to feed the group. And if you don't meet that food, you have to vote somebody that gets eaten.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, some of the tricks is if you're each round you have a leader and it rotates. If you're the leader, So when you put in food, you put it face down, so nobody knows, and then it gets mixed up, so nobody knows who put in food, poison, or medicine, or what happened, right? So as the leader, though, like if I think you've been acting sketchy, I can look at your card. I can pick somebody in the group and look at their card before they put in. And then if I think you're being sketchy, I can look and be like, oh, he put in poison. Like he's got to be, or maybe that's all you had. Like it's a real tricky, but then you basically have to eat somebody. And then they have this, they have extended rules where you become a ghost and then you can kind of interact some more instead of just being out of the game. But it's really interesting, and it's that hidden traitor, kind of.
That's the worth. Man, my words today. The worst part about playing just people call it mafia. I've always heard of it as werewolf.
Yeah,
is when you get knocked out and you're just out. And if there's some people do games of werewolf that's like 30 people at conventions and you just leave, right? Like you're just like, or even if you got you're having a party, you're like 12. Well, back when you could
have parties,
and you had like 12 people over and hey, let's play werewolf, right? And then like you get knocked out and you just get to watch for the next like 2 hours, right? That's miserable.
Yeah.
So it's cool to have conditions where you can still like monkey around. Like there's one board game I had called Senji. I've never had this game. I've never played a game that's created more vitriol and hate between players. So it's more or less Risk. Like it's easiest way to explain it. Risk, where there's you're each fighting over Japan. You're all like samurai lords. And you start in a different area, and you're trying to take the most capitals, and then, like, you can do the political phase is actually where all the hate comes in. So just straight fighting, everyone gets it. You're all going in to fight, whatever. It's how it is. So there's the best part about the game is the winter phase, I think it's called, where I can say you're all around the table and say, "Hey Jay, you and me, the other room," and you leave, and you're like, "All right, we're gonna screw Kyle, and here's how we're gonna do it." And then you can make whatever deal you want, and so you actually have a handful of supportive combat cards. So I can say, like, hey, you can use this in any combat. And then how the dice works is you throw all the dice, and then if your symbol comes up, that's your attacks. But if, let's say, I gave you one of my cards and you played it, my symbols would add to your combat as well. Or I could give you a family member, and you can put it in front of you as a hostage, and so you get temporary victory points. Or you could execute it, and then I lose honor for doing that. So what you can do is, so I say, hey, Jay, you and me in the other room, I'm like, I'll give you my first son for your daughter, and you're like, okay. Then I go to Kyle and be like, yo, I just made a deal with Jay. We're gonna try to screw you, so I'm gonna like a triple cross Jay. Here's his daughter, and you're gonna use that to like put leverage and then play it on the next turn, so he knows there's been a double cross. Like it's the craziest thing. So there's a timer for it, but the amount of deals and backstabbing, and like I've never the game is just about pushing plastic around and then to fight, right? But that deception and lies, because it never goes like well. Right. So we've had stuff where like everybody but Jay leave the room, or like, Jay, you need to go out of the room. Everyone else is gonna stay here. And you're like, well, you're fine. And then we're like, all right, how are we gonna get him? Or sometimes you're like, all right, we're just gonna do it normally, not like actually actively fight you. But now you're like, what are they doing, right? Why am I the one out? So it's amazing, because I've never seen people have gotten so mad, like seething rage. And that, to me, a game that can do that with just cards and like combat. But the part about so let's say you get knocked out.
Okay.
Let's say you get kicked out. Well, you actually get to come back every turn as a Ronin, and you start in the ocean, and you just kind of come in from a side. So you can let's say this whole game I've been just like working against you, fighting you, and my plan is I finally knock you out. Well, you come in on whatever ocean side you want, and you can just come out my weak flank and just start rooting me. And then you're like, hey, guess who's back? It's great. So my friend group, I have a competitive friend group who I stopped playing it in because things got intense. The thing is, I think it's hilarious when people backstab me, or a triple cross or a quadruple cross. Like, I backstabbed you, but then I went back, but then I went back, but then I went back. Like, I love that. But then they could get really mad, so I had to take it off the platter for a while. But I've got this new group who's a lot more casual, and I'm like, oh, yo, this game might be real fire. Senji, I don't know if it's made anymore, but that game was I loved the fact that even if you got wiped out, you can just sometimes the dice can just not go your way. A couple guys plan on you, we're going to split your territory, and we're just gonna knock you out of the board, and you're like, oh, crap, so you get knocked out. But then you just keep coming back as Ronin on the ocean with an army. So then you can be like, all right, who do I go attack? And people can start paying you resources. Like, no, don't attack me, go attack Jay. Like, you're great. Like, you're never out. Like, you might lose, but then you become like a kingmaker at that point, where you can like come back in. It's not like for example, like Cyclades or something. If you just get wiped out or a risk and you just wiped out, you're just out, right?
Yeah,
That's it.
it's kind of like that. What was it? Sheriff of Nottingham game, right?
Yeah, you're never like, quite out. Yeah,
no. It's not me.
Oh my gosh!
Like,
so
there's nothing.
There's actually
in here.
Good thing you mentioned that. Sheriff of Nottingham just got released with a second edition like this past month, and it's sold out everywhere. But if you can get a copy, phenomenal game. They don't buy the first and the expansion because the second edition has everything in it for like $40. So Sheriff of Nottingham is you're all more or less doing the same thing.
Yep.
You get a little snap bag and you get a hand of cards. I know we're all over the place on this podcast, but
It doesn't matter.
This is going okay.
Just keep listening. You're fine.
You're fine. Just don't you dare turn that channel.
You just hold on to your pants.
You get a hand of cards. It's like apples, bread, chickens, and then also illegal goods like pepper and a crossbow.
Crossbows, yeah.
So each turn, each round, someone is the sheriff for the round, and then you fill your bag up to 5 things. And the only thing you can't lie about is how many cards are in the bag. So if you put 3, you have to say 3, and you have to declare a legal good. So you could be lying about what legal good's in there if you just wanted to.
Right. So you could, let's say, generally you don't want to because you get to keep that if you. So let's say I did 5 cards and I was like, apples, governor. And it's like I have 3 apples and 2 crossbows in there. Now, if Evan's the sheriff, he has to. It kind of devolves quickly because then you end up not believing anyone ever.
Yeah.
You just like don't care. At some point, you're like, okay, yeah, you got apples, whatever.
So that's funny. So like I had a friend who never lies, so you just always shoot it back. The one who always lies, so you always open it. Right? There's like so the bribing. So like I'll see Jay handed it to Rachel when we played, and I handed Rachel like 3 coins. I'm like, oh, I think he's a liar, governor. You know, I don't know why we do this Cockney accent, but it makes it funnier.
Because it's fun.
And so like I'll slide coins over, and you can do whatever. I can be like, here's an apple from my cart. I think you should open that bag. And then and then so he's sweating because he's got like 5 crossbows in there. Yeah. And then there's a certain amount of each card, so there's more apples than anything else, and then bread and cheese kind of thing. So if he said 5 apples, that's actually not uncommon, right? That could probably be in there, or it could be 5 crossbows. So it's
and then like. So, yeah, and then you got to look at what I've been collecting, and it's like, okay, well, he already has 5 apples.
He's done 5 apples 3 times in a row.
It's interesting, but then it's like I found when we played once or twice, but like it just devolves after a while, and it's like because none of it matters because you can't tell if someone is or isn't lying.
Yeah.
You're just like, yeah, you're lying, and then you're like, nope, I'm not, and then you're like, okay, so then the next time you're like, I don't care. Like,
yeah. You see, I think there's some extra stuff that gets added in the expansions. It adds 2 more players, which is cool. It adds a deputy. I don't know what he does. I know it's I was gonna buy the upgrade to my game, but then I saw 2nd edition. I'm like, oh, I'll just buy that and get like a fresh copy because mine's pretty beat at this point. Yeah. Because I have a shelf that's games for people who don't play games, and it's my bait. It's like Sheriff of Nottingham, Splendor, Pandemic, things like that are like one easy concept, real smooth game like Ticket to Ride. Small World could be on there. It's not too bad. It's not too heavy. But then I have like the next shelf, which is like Nexus Ops, Cyclades, one of the God, I was just organizing my games today. Zia, Legends of Odysseus. Like then I have like the real heavy bottom shelf that's like Twilight Imperium, Forgotten Stars, like some really heavy stuff that I don't break out unless I'm playing with people who've played it before. Yeah. So then I always start with the top, and then I have friends who just that's what they want. Like they want to like I could play Splendor all day. Yeah. Like I love that game. But then if they're like, hey, this is fun, but do we have anything else? And I'm like, oh. So then I like dig a little deeper. I start training them. I'm like, hey, so I've got this game called Formula D, and it's a racing game, and there's 2 modes to it. One that's just you roll a die, you move your car, you shift up, shift down, real simple. But then they're like, wow, this is really fun. I'm like, okay, do you want to do a league? And then so you flip it, and then you make a car, you make a driver, you add like stats or different tracks. So like I have games like once you've hosted enough game nights, you can gauge the room. Like same thing with like a joke, right? A good joke is only really good sometimes if you gauge a room if it's gonna be funny to them or not. So like you get a good game, you start feeling it out. Like some people are over casually. You're not like, hey, let's play. I don't know, some heavy like Descent version 2 is your first game. Like, I'd never come back.
So give me your top 3 mixed room games. So you like my house generally is a mixed room house. So because we always try to include Rachel when we're playing games, and she's getting there. She's getting learning games.
Yeah.
But like, so what are your top 3 mixed room games? Like you're gonna have some tryhards, but you also know you're gonna have some noobs. What do you do?
Okay. I'd actually do Pandemic again, even though it's I consider it my like easy one. Pandemic's cooperative.
Okay.
So you all win together, you all lose together, and that's actually pretty important because sometimes people get scared. They're like, well, I'm just gonna lose, and like that's the thing I hear a lot, and I'm like, well, you can't. Because if you lose, I lose too. Right? So it's like we're all trying to win or lose together. So any flavor of Pandemic, honestly, there's like a Roman, Rising Tide, Cthulhu at this point. Like you can't lose with pretty much any of those. They're all more or less the same idea. Move guy, do a thing. Then next would be Formula D. I like quite a bit because you can play it easy or hard, and you just do the easy mode where you get a car and you roll a die and move a thing. So everyone gets a car. You roll a die, you shift up or shift down, and you get a bigger die depending on what it is. And so there's the one I've played the track I've got a bunch of different tracks for the game, but I've played the track it came with like, oh my god, 100 times at this point because it's an easy game. Everyone understands racing. Everyone understands like NASCAR or Indy 500. So you pick a little car, you put it down, you just roll and you move, and that's besides like a couple how turns work. You have to stop so many times. That's the rules. So that's really easy to do. And plus, rolling, there's a 50-sided die. So you launch that thing when you go to like Top Gear, and then that's really fun. So that's that. The next one down, that's gonna be a tough one. I haven't looked at my shelf in a while. I'd say, oh gosh, it's one I haven't played in a while. Let's say we had exactly 4 people. All right, this might be out of print, but I wanted to mention it's called Friday. I think it's based on Tintin, but it's based on the detectives of Tintin and not Tintin himself.
Yeah.
And so how it works is you play 4 detectives at a table, and it's you each actually Forgotten Waters is probably my real pick, but I want to talk about Friday anyway. Forgotten Waters is great, really easy to play.
Take Friday because I'm going to take Forgotten Waters.
Yeah, okay, that's really easy. But so you exactly 4 people sit on a table, and someone reads the beginning of the mission, like you're all like, a man has been murdered at this dance party, and then you all get a piece of information. And then how it works is you have to play telephone back and forth. So like you'll be at the opposite end of the table. I can't just tell you. I have to tell it through Rachel. And then Rachel has to tell you. But we have to tell so many bits of information, like everything we've heard. So like let's say you tell me something first. Like let's say we have Dayton tells me something, right? And I'm like, okay, but that information, he never talks to you directly. So it's got to go from him to me to her to you. And he has to get it right in the first place.
Right.
Right? So you go back and forth sharing information. And then at the end, you get asked 3 questions. You have a little notepad you can write down like things in, but it gets so crazy, and like I've never won. Yeah. But honestly, people have a really good time because you're all winning or losing together. It's not like I detected the best. It's if we all don't do it, we all lose. So that's actually a lot of fun because there's no dice rolling, there's no like high concept movement, anything like that. It's just you play telephone back and forth, and then you get you all feel kind of really dumb, but that's actually really a lot of fun.
Yeah, so my top 3 would be my top one is Forgotten Waters, like because I've now played it a few times with Evan and the boys, where we're all gamers, and we all loved it. Rachel and Evan and some of the boys, Rachel loved it, and I've played with Rachel and the kids, and so it's just like
it's an easy crowd pleaser.
Yeah, right? and you can game it if you want. You can just relax and be a pirate. So that game's great. The next one I would pick is King of Tokyo.
Yeah, that's good. That's really
easy to explain. There's for people who want to game. There's gaming in it. For people who just want to relax and like some funny shit, like that's King of Tokyo.
The easiest sell to that is, have you ever played Yahtzee? Yes. Okay, it's Monster Yahtzee.
Yeah.
And you don't have to keep track of any. You don't have to keep score, right? You have 2 dials, like how much damage you've taken and how much like cred you've got. The victory points, right? So you get victory points for standing in Tokyo. So it's King of the Hill with Yahtzee, and that's the easiest way to explain it.
So it's my third. Gosh, there's so many for the third one. I probably go Food Fight.
Food Fight's not bad. Yeah, I think it's good.
By Cryptozoic Games.
Yeah.
So basically, it's like a kind of war. You know, remember that old war card game? So it's kind of like that, but with like these funny cards that like for food, and you got breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they're like Sergeant Pepper and like all these crazy cards, and you know haven't played it. It's fun, right? And then I probably after that. You got like Ticket to Ride. That's an easy one to get people in.
Pretty much you go to any Target, Walmart, or if you go, honestly, you go into the FFG section of a game store. Like FFG has got these racks now that they put their games in. And you ask whoever's working there, hopefully they know, like, hey, what's... FFG makes a lot of cool like entry, like Splendor. Yep. Splendor's another really great, easy game, right? It's... You take, and there's even a Marvel version coming out where you're grabbing Infinity Stones, right? Yeah, right. Like how has that not been made before? But
yeah, that's perfect.
So like like FFG, to their credit, has a lot of like really easy games, and they also have stuff like Descent. You know, they tease that at the end of their show that there's like a Descent Master Edition coming out. But like they have the real heavy stuff too. But man, there's so many little, even like a game called Pairs, which is it's like a $5 game, and there's 1 1, 2 2s, 3 3s, 4 4s, up to 10.
Yeah.
And everyone gets one card, and either you stay or you hit, and then you get another card. As long as you don't get a pair, you don't lose.
Yeah.
And then whoever got the most score at the end, and that's like, right? It's easy. It's like a deck of cards, and it's super cheap.
But yeah, so that's what that's it for this cast, I think, right, Evan?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I got into weird tangents, but
I loved it.
I think it was fun. We started about Scythe and ended up like raving about Pairs.
Well, everybody, there's few of you listening to us right now because no one stays till the end. So thanks for staying if you did.
You're all our favorites. Leave a like, subscribe, and tell me a good pun in the comments. I got one for you.
Give me your best soup recipe. Go ahead.
Give me your best soup. Will Crystal Coffins be a success? Remains to be seen.
He got us.
Got him.
All right, well, on that let's sign off. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Join us next week.
Everyone, stay rad. You know what? I give the jokes, and you just stare at me. You know what? I am coming up with high-class comedy here, and you're like a weird producer, okay? Like, you gotta throw me a bone here once in a while.
Join us next week for another edition of the Fifth Trooper podcast.
This has been a Fifth Trooper production.